RMJ Movie Reviews back again. And now I'm coming with the 1996 slasher reboot classic, Scream, directed by Wes Craven, starring Neve Campbell, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, Rose McGowan, Jamie Kennedy, and special appearance by Drew Barrymore. Scream, what else can we say about it? It's just a straight up classic. We all know that by the time 1996 came, by the time the mid 90s came, the slasher genre was just done. It was over with. I remember I was a freshman in high school. I just entered my freshman year of high school, this film had come. I was 15 years old when this film came out. And it came out at an odd time of the year, too. I remember it came out in December. And also, too, when the previews for Scream came out, they didn't tell you about the whole movie. It was just very vague. You saw Scream, you kind of saw Neve Campbell kind of running. You saw Drew Barrymore scream, and then you saw David Arquette's face, and then it was like, Scream. And they just you didn't know what it was. It was intriguing, but and they just said, someone has taken their love of scary movies too far. And that was it, you know. And me and my best friend, we went to go see it opening night, and man, we were just blown away by Scream. It was so unexpected because it wasn't really advertised like it was a slasher. You didn't really know what it was. You knew that it had to do with scary movies, but you didn't know it was what it was. But the big hook for Scream is just the fact that it's so self-aware. And of course, you saw a little bit of the self-aware humor in films like Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, or even, like I said, retro junk like Return to Horror High from 1987, if anybody even remembers that piece of trash. But, you know, those were little films where they had little sprinkle. And there were the horror films throughout kind of the late 80s where they kind of sprinkled it in there, but nothing to the cleverness. The thing that works so great about Scream is that, number one, it's creepy. It is a creepy film. I can't go so far as to say it's a guy running around stabbing people with a knife. It's scary, like chilling, but when you actually think about it, it's very scary. You know, but as far as just watching it as a film, it's very creepy. In particular, that opening murder sequence of Drew Barrymore is chilling. It's very, very chilling. It's a scary scene. The cap off to that scene with the parents pulling up and she can't say hi because her vocal cords are jacked up, and then and the mom sees her swinging from the tree. That's a gut wrenching punch to that scene. The cool thing about it is does the movie reach the terror of the opening scene? No, but it's creepy. You've got very involving characters. All the characters are interesting. You know what I mean? And I don't mean interesting like you want to know like their whole life story, but they're lively. They feel like lively people. They feel like actual people you'd find in a high school. Everybody across the board plays their role to the T. Everybody in this movie is good. What I like is how it's kind of playing the wink humor, but it's also playing the situation as real. That's what I really like about it. And I love there's clever nods in there. You know, you've got nods to, obviously there's a bunch of nods to Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, there's a tip of the hat to Friday the 13th, Candyman, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's a nod to John Carpenter and Wes Craven. There's a lot of other little movie references sprinkled throughout the movie. The Howling is referenced. There's just so many. It's so cleverly written. And also, too, it has a very cool murder mystery. And the murder mystery is actually involving. Like, you're wondering. I remember when I saw the film when I was 15. And, well, you know, now I've seen it, like, I don't know, hundreds of times over I don't know how many years. But even still, you're wondering, you want to know who the killer is. And you're actually investing in the movie like, could it be Billy? Could it be Stu? Could it be Randy? Could it be Dewey? Could it even be Tatum? You know what I mean? You're constantly wondering who is the killer. There's a lot of good bloody kills. Of course the kills. There's only one that kind of gets into, Friday the 13th kind of over the top territory, and that's when Rose McGowan gets her head like broke in the garage door. But they needed a really good kind of over the top one. The rest of them are pretty standard, slashing throats and stabbing. But it's effective. It's effective. It's as brutal as it needs to be. Like I said, the Drew Barrymore thing is just, that's very nasty scene, and it's just the right level of nastiness. The kills don't go too far. They're just violent enough that they have impact. So it's like when the killer strikes in this movie, it feels real. Like there's only one death scene that kind of took me out, and that's when Henry Winkler gets killed. The Fonz. When he gets killed, I kind of felt like his death was kind of plugged in. But aside from his death scene, I felt all of them were very, very, very effective, and they're appropriately nasty, And it's just really bloody. It's not like really the only thing that's really probably gory is probably I think when the boyfriend is like stomach is like hanging out and stuff, and also too I love the killer calling people, which at that time was new because cell phones weren't like they are now, where everybody's just in the library and Wi-Fi and all that. You know what I mean? The cell phones, as indicated when you watch the film now, how big the cell phones were. This was only 1996. In the 80s they were like that. But this was just the beginning of cell phones kind of getting to that level. And the funny thing about it was, I remember at the time I was seeing a girl after the movie had come out. And my mother used to let me use her car all the time to go over her house and visit her. And my mother had one of those old school cell phones you plug into the lighter at 90s. And I remember I did that from watching Scream. And I remember I called her and was like, I'll be over. And I used to live at least, I think, like 25 minutes from her. We used to live 25 minutes apart. So I actually called outside the house, and then I knocked on the back door when her parents weren't home. And I remember she was shook. But you got to remember, guys, this is 1990, I think, 8. So it wasn't like it is now where everybody's got a cell phone. So I remember she was just kind of looking at me like, how did you get here? But guys, 1998. That's and it's really creepy with the way the killer toys with people. And you kind of Marco Beltramo, I think is how you say his name, Beltrami. I don't know how you say his name. The guy who scored the movie. His music is very overwrought and over the top, but it's that kind of a movie, so it fits. It didn't really honestly feel goofy until you saw like 2 and 3 and really 4, which I have already forgotten 4. I even forget sometimes there is a Scream 4. But it's kind of funny watching Scream now how it feels glitched now. You know what I mean? It feels like when Drew Barrymore is like, how do you know his name? And the music goes, Doom. It feels glitched now, but that was because I Know What You Did Last Summer and Urban Legend and all the Scream ripoffs came afterwards. But I do remember sitting in that theater opening night when Scream came out. The whole movie felt totally original. And of course, the cap off of 2 killers. That was a big problem they had with all those slasher movies in the 80s and even into the ones they tried to pump out in the early 90s is how was the killer everywhere all the time like that? Unless you were Jason or Michael Myers or Freddy, when you were just like a human killer, it just made no sense. How could the killer be everywhere? Scream answers that question by having 2 killers. Because when rewatching it now, it makes perfect sense that Billy and Stu are the killers. But at the time, it took me a couple times to watch it to kind of finally piece it together. But if you really see watching the movie now, it just makes total sense that Billy and Stu are the killers. They're very... All the kids in the movie, because this was the 90s when, mass media was kind of getting out of control with violence on television and all that kind of stuff. It's nowhere near to what it is now, but this was the beginning of violence on television and the internet kind of stuff of the 90s. So the teenagers in Scream are kind of trying to reflect that desensitized kind of attitude. So I like how the movie kind of has that little subtext to it, how like they're kind of indifferent to violence because there's so much violence in the media and all that. There's that little angle too, like with Courtney Cox. Forgot I left her out. But the teenagers all kind of are indifferent to the violence because of what violence they're exposed to, like with the scary movies and all that kind of stuff. But they're just being kids. When you watch the movie again and you really look at Billy and Stu, you can really, the way Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich play it, they play it very subtly, but they very much play that a sociopathic personality. You can really catch it if you rewatch it again. And I think I was looking at IMDb, and somebody put up a post where they said, did you know Billy and Stu were the killers of the whole movie? I can't name anybody who knew Scream when the movie came out if they said they knew they were the killer. If they were, they got to be lying. Because I didn't know they were the killer. My buddy didn't know. Everybody in the theater didn't know they were the killers. And that was the big hook. I mean, it was an awesome movie, but the kick that it was them two and it was two killers was like, whoa, So, watching it now, I can really now see. And the person who put that post on IMDb exactly said that the scene in the video store, 1996 guys, video stores, but the scene in the video store was the cap off. That was the scene where this person said they knew that Billy was the killer and he knew Stu was the killer. And watching it now, I totally agree with that person, because you can kind of see, even in that scene by the fountain early in the movie, Billy and Stu are kind of playing off of each other. They're kind of sending the signals like, we know that we did it. And Billy's kind of looking back at Stu like, dog, you shut your mouth. You're talking too much, man. You know what we did. We got to play this game. We know what's happening here. And you can kind of see that dynamic. But then when you go to the video store scene, it's more out there. Like, you can kind of see, like, yeah, these cats are in on it. And you can see how they're bouncing off one another, how, Randy is stuck in the middle. These guys are nuts, man. Oh, man. Scream it's just fantastic. It's just a fantastic reboot to the slasher genre. I love Scream. I love Scream up and down. Another thing that was kind of brand new at the time, too, is once the killer was revealed, the way Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard kind of played their characters once they revealed to be who they were. Kind of over the top, and, Matthew Lillard just, this is a screamer, and he's drooling and all that kind of stuff. And, it perfectly, although even when I saw it at the time, I kind of felt like aspects of their acting was kind of going overboard. I think they maybe should have trimmed some of it back. But, it's such an over-the-top kind of movie. You kind of just had to let the actors just run with it and just go. Because if they would have just came out like, very quietly, like, yes, we're the killers, da-da-da-da. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't have been... The whole front of the movie is so good, you just needed something over the top to complement the first half of the movie. So, granted, when they're revealed to be who they are, they're over the top. But, hey, it works for the movie. Trying to think of anything else I can say about Scream. It's a cleverly plotted, involving murder mystery, with a self-aware sense of humor and a very good wink to films and horror films of the 70s and the 80s in particular, and some of the 90s. So I love Scream. And also too, it was such a unique thing to see that costume, the ghost face. I mean, that was just, it's a Scream match now, but when that movie came out, they had tons of those things in storage. I don't know. And I just love that whole aspect that there's one point in the movie you see the costume, and the actual costume is called Father Death, and that's creepy. That's really creepy. I mean, if you think about it, somebody who's a psychopathic personality would probably put on a costume like that and try to kill somebody for real. So it's Scream is very creepy even more now. I was talking with a patient at work about that, because we're both the same age, and we were talking about the film. And we were saying how, Scream could really happen in real life. I mean, at the time, in particular, we talked about Scream 2, where killing Jada Pinkett in the movie theater. I mean, guys, when that movie came out, when I saw Scream 2, the killing Jada Pinkett in the movie theater, I was like, are you kidding me? That is the most ridiculous. That is absurd. How could that happen? Right, guys. But, jeez, that's all I got to say about Scream. I love Scream. I just love Scream. Scream 2, not so much do I love it. I like it. Kind of falls apart in the second and third act of the movie. Scream 3, I like Scream 3. Not as well written, but I like it, I just love this movie. I love it. Neve Campbell, Rose McGowan, they are just the most adorable things. Rose McGowan, I just had the hots for her at this time. And then I found out she was dating Marilyn Manson, and it was just like, oh, God. Like, you bang him. But, that's all I got to say about Scream, everybody. Great, 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 great. 10 out of 10. It was unexpected. It was a massive hit when it came out. I remember we went to school the next day. Everybody was talking about it. Fantastic, 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 fantastic. That's all I can say about Scream. Wes Craven, God rest his soul. That man was a master horror filmmaker. I wouldn't call him the best, but he was damn good at what he did. RMJ Movie Reviews. Thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below. How old were you? How did Scream affect you when it came out? Let's talk about the murder mystery, the reveal of the two killers, just everything. Subscribe to my channel. I'll be back with some more horror movie reviews for the last, 3 days of October. I'll see you soon. Boop.